Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, it's Vandia. So back in my Carfe Vanguard deck profile. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, and let's switch out. This time we are covering another DZ set 1 deck. I'm recording this literally right off the back of the Scry's deck profile, but we are now covering the second budget deck, quote unquote budget deck, revealed in DZ set 1, and another defensive deck as well, and that is Dark States Androld. So Androld again is, like the Scry, basically the answer, Bushy's answer to the competitive players' prayers, because competitive was getting too aggro, so now they want defensive decks, and whoop de doo, we got defensive decks, and this deck is fun to play defensively. And here's the best part about this: I did not realize that Androld was not a once per turn the first time I played him. I mean, the first time I played him, I held back. Just saying. But also, I'm still not good with this deck. But the point is, this deck is pretty much the Pale Moon vibe. Currently, the only deck we had before this that represented the Pale Moon vibe was legitimately the Pale Moon deck they brought to D, which was Lukier. But then, they brought this deck in. It feels so fun. That's why this deck is called Direful Circus. Because it literally is like the revamp of the Nightmare Dolls. They go to Soul. In this case, they go to Buying Zone. Then they come back to Soul. Then they come back to board. And then they kind of just repeat the loop. Well, they go from Buying Zone to Guard Circle. Then they go from Guard Circle to Drop, and then they go from Drop to Soul. You get the point. Point is, around the deck is very fun to play, and I can't wait to get this one started, so let's go ahead and get this started, so and see what we got. First up today, we have our energy generator. So, as like Liscria, I'm going to take less time explaining this, but it's our new game mechanic, our new resource engine like CB and Soul Blast, but instead we get to charge it each turn, so it's usable more frequently. So, on the ride deck, when you would ride, put this card from your crest zone, and put this card into your crest zone, and if you 1 second, you energy charge 3, you can have a total of 10 energies, and then at the beginning of your ride phase, energy charge 3, and then for you non-energy blasting decks, act once per turn, energy blast 7 to draw a card. All around pretty solid. You only have one ride deck crest, but being able to basically get this for free just by playing the game, literally the second you ride, so that's pretty solid. Not to mention the fact that you get to energy charge 3 every turn, meaning you can hit that max 10 a lot easier, and if you are a deck that doesn't energy charge a lot, you can just quickly energy blast 7 to draw a card. All around, very solid. It's a good card, and yeah, that's all I really have to say. Now we move on to our main deck, or not even our main deck yet, our ride deck, because remember now the ride deck and main deck are separate, which means the main deck gets an extra 4 cards, but we'll move on to that in a second. First up, we have our starter in Direful Daltonia, frankly my favorite of the starters, because look at it, it just has a knife, and it's on the cute couch. Anyways, Grisel boost, Fat Kashiosis, Kid base, auto road playing for a second, draw a card, standard starter, nothing special about it, it's just a free draw if you go second. Tonya is just very solid, frankly I'm unaware of Tonya's gender, I kind of want to say he and she at the same time, so I'll just say they, but you know, they have a cute little bunny rabbit in their back. I know that looks really messed up, but it's just so cute. But the free draw is nice. Also, the fact that Tonya counts as a Direful doll and a Workoroid, that is important, is great, because, you know, if worse comes to worse and you have to call Tonya from skills, he/she is proccable. So one of Tonya in the ride deck, you don't really need her, but it's nice to have backup options. Then we move on to our main deck, finally, and that would be our triggers. So we start off with our Over Trigger and Terrifying, Wicked, Dragon King, Vam Freeze, Great Zero Boost, 50k Shield, 5k Power, Over Trigger, in your deck revealed. As a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose one revealed, it gets plus movement for the turn, and if you revealed it during your draw check, activate its additional effect, which you get during your turn. All your Vanguards get plus 10,000 power, plus 1 critical to end the fight. All around pretty solid. You can run this or Galmalgahel. They have the exact same skill. I just prefer this one because it came out closer to the time of release of Androld. But being able to get a 1 million to draw regardless if you draw check the damage section, this is great. But then if you get in the drive check for the rest of the game, regardless of when you check this, if you check this while you're on grade 1, I promise you your opponent will hate you. The Vanguard will be a constant, whatever number normally is, plus 10 in a crit. Meaning the Vanguard constantly has crit pressure, and your opponent has to guard an extra 10k to stop it. I haven't seen someone do it since, like, the first 2 sets of D, but I remember in the first 2 sets of D, if you just pulled the over trigger for Dark States, most people gave up. Because, like, you straight up can't stop that. Like, they have extra crit. They have so much extra pressure. If they pulled it on the grade 1 turn, people just give up because, like, there's no point. Like, they got the first attack. They got all that benefit out of it. And I got to deal with it for turns on turns end. Yeah, it's not worth it. So all around Van Freeze is really solid. You can run Galmalgahel if you want to because it has extra skill, but I prefer Van Freeze. Then we move on to our normal triggers. Run 3 copies of Rouse Wild Master Riley. So Great Zero Boost, 5k Shield, 4k base. Draw a trigger, Guard Circle. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, your Seekers with 5k Shield, so you know 10k Shield, very solid. Also the fact that she can increase the hand, which is nice because the deck doesn't really soul charge that much, meaning you want the extra cards in hand, also because you want more Direful dolls. Now something I didn't realize is that Direful dolls actually got triggers from the trial deck, which I realized this morning when I was putting this deck together that they got triggers from the trial deck, which is why the crit changed from the one in the video. So if you see the one in like the fight videos is different from the one in this video, yeah, that's why, because I didn't know that crit existed until today. But either way though, Riley's a very solid card, helps increase hand, it has extra shield, which is again you want for a defensive deck, so 3 of. And then we have a total of 7 crit, 4 of that new crit I was just talking about, Direful Bethany, Grisel boost 15k shield, 5k power. Obviously I've not played any games with this because I literally put this together this morning and I haven't had time to play. But it adds more targets to the deck, so worst comes to worst, if you have to call her from soul or send her to soul or do anything with her, she'll at least count as it and proc off, meaning you have one more unit that can proc off skills, worst comes to worst. So 4 of her, and then we have 4 copies of Stem, Deviate, Dragon Grade, so boost 15k shield, 4k base, critical trigger, auto rear. At the end about this unit boosted, it put this unit to soul to choose over units, except 2k for the turn. Okay, this deck does not soul boss at all, so this going to soul does not do anything. In fact, the only benefit of this is you get the free 2k, and most of the time your board's going to be filled with Direful Dolls. But you know, worst comes to worst, free 2k. That's pretty solid, and we have a total of 8 crits, meaning while we don't really need the draws because we already have a lot of defensive power, we can just use the crits to abuse our opponents. And because Bethany's here, we can kind of just loop her back and forth between the soul, the guard circle, and the drop zone, and the board. And because she's a 15k and Androld already gives her +5, this is a 20k shield, basically, for Bethany. Then we have 4 copies of our heal, who was already in the deck because I knew she existed, and that is Direful Alexandra. So Grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power. She is not an effective. If you want to run the counter heals, go ahead, but I feel like the counter heals are too situational. But very solid heal. She's a 20k shield. By the way, there is a counter heal that does a Direful Doll. So if you want to run that one, I can see the excuse because while they do have less shield, Android does bump them up shield, but I'd rather have a 20k shield over here. Either way though, Alexandra being a 20k shield when used with Android's ability is solid. I mean, most of the time you have to get them from rear guard to bind zone or from drop zone to bind zone. I'm pretty sure it's rear guard to bind zone, but so you obviously not going to be calling her that often. But you know, if you do end up getting her in a bind zone, free 20k shield, and if you don't, well, she's a 15k shield. She does proc off targets that call. So for Alexandra, very solid grade 0. Again, you can run the counter heal version 2, but I would rather just have this one for the free 20. Then move on to our grade 1s. First, we're on 2 copies of Direful Kirtin, grade 1 boost 5k shield, 8k base. So this entire deck, outside of the PGs are Direful Dolls, because as any of you know that have been with me for a long time, if there is an archetype, I will try to stick with it within my best capabilities. And yeah, not all of the Direful Dolls are good, but to be more specific, only 2 of them in this deck aren't good. The rest of them are pretty solid. Anyways, Direful Kirtin is a grade 1 boost 5k shield, 8k base, and active rear guard circle once per turn. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, by counterblasting 2, you get to draw a card. Is not an amazing ability because it does eat away at the deck CB, which it definitely does need. But on the one occasion I have used it, that draw was really helpful, and not to mention that she's a Direful Doll, meaning, you know, you can call her from soul via Androld skill, you can use her as guard fodder. All around Kirtin, she's not amazing by herself with her skill, but what she is what makes her really good. That sounds wrong, but you know what I mean by this. I mean, her skill is useful though when it does go off. It's just 50-50 on when you want to use it. Either way though, Kirtin is just a very solid grade 2 up. Grade 1. I don't know why I said grade 2. Next up, we have 4 copies of, everyone knows this from D set 1, and that would be Direful Doll Simone, the first Direful Doll, I think, or it was the second one, either way. Also, she has a moon in her background, something I never noticed. Anyways, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Auto when she boosts, if your soul has 5 or more cards, this happens 50-50. You will either get a really good set of soul charges almost immediately, or you will not. So that just kind of 50-50s out. But anyways, counterblast 1 till the end of that battle. When your opponent will call cards from the guard circle, they must call 2 or more at the same time. 1 CB, however, unlike 2, does not eat away at your CB count that much. I mean, you can just play that, and then suddenly your opponent has to drop 2 more cards. So while you're being defensive and not having to use any cards from hand thanks to Android skill, your opponent has to spend extra cards on their guarding thanks to Simone's skill. Pretty solid back and forth here. Either way, Simone is a very solid grade 1. Like I said, sometimes her ability doesn't come off, but if you have her on board, you have that like threatening pressure to your opponent, telling them they better get it off the board quickly, because if they don't, that will cause a problem, considering there are ways, the longer the game goes on, you will probably soul charge up to 5 a lot more consistently. So watch out for Simone. Very solid grade 1. Then we have 4 copies of Direful Pelia, whatever. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto rear guard. I think about that she boosted anything. Vanguard, rear guard, doesn't matter the grade. If you have a Vanguard Direful Doll in the card name, by binding this unit, you have 2 Direful Dolls from your drop zone, put them into your soul. And this is how the triggers get in there, but most of the time, you know, you pick your ride deck, discard fodder, whatever that was, if you play her early. If you play her late, it's really whatever you've been comboing into your opponent. So Pretty solid, not to mention the fact that she binds herself. I mean, you can proc off, not Alejandro, that's a completely different card game, but you can proc off Androld's skill more consistently. And then her other skills continues guard circle. If you have a Vanguard Direful Doll card name, she gets 5k shield. All around pretty solid, she's a 10k shield, which is nice, and with Androld's skill, if you called her from bind zone, she's a 15k shield. Basically, more guard power, and she's another trigger. All around, Pelia is a very solid grade 1. She gets you soul cards for free. She sets up the bind zone, and she then acts as a trigger when called from bind zone. All around, very solid grade 1. Easy 4 in this deck. Then we have 4 copies of our PG, and that is Ridicu Disruptor. If there was a Direful Doll PG, I 100% would have taken it over the one with this skill. Grade 1 boost, 5k shields, or 0 shields, sorry, 6k base, continuous sentinel. You may have up to only 4 sentinels in deck on opponent guard circle. Choose one of these, it cannot be hit on the battle. If your hand has 2 or more cards in it, choose a card and discard it. Standard PG, nothing too special about it. Basically, it means if this only one card is placed on guard circle, you don't have to discard, which is great, because that means you can be as aggressive as you want in the early game. Spam all 3 of these, or at least start rushing at grade 2. And then when your opponent counterattacks you because you haven't gotten the chance to set up your defensive power yet, and they know the defensive power is coming, you throw down Disruptor, and because you have little to no other hand cards, you don't have to discard one, which is great. So all around, Disruptor is pretty solid. You can run Repelled Malice Dragon, you can run Skill Hate Dragon. They have the exact same skill as her, but I prefer Ridicu Disruptor because she's the new PG, and might as well run the new PG with the new Dark States deck. So 4 of her. Also, if you're wondering why I don't run the Blitz order, I said in Lascry, and I'm only going to say, actually in hindsight, Lascry had more reason to run the Blitz order, so fair. But I'm going to say here as well, and then I'm not going to say in any other video pretty much. I don't run the Blitz order because I don't like having the idea that when worse comes to worse, I can't call it PG. People that have seen me play know that more often than not, when it comes down to it, I will with no hesitation call it PG. Like, there will be no thought process in it. If I feel like I have to call it PG, I will call it PG, and most of those times, those end up in my victory. But I'm not putting that one chance where I cannot call a PG in the worst case scenario that I need to call a PG. For Ridicu Disruptor. How often does that happen? Not often. But I'm just saying, in the situation that it has, if I had a Blitz PG in that situation, I would have lost those games. So take that as you will. Now we move on to our last grade 1 of in the right deck, 3 of in the main deck, because Bushy listened to my prayers and gave us cards with skills that were in the right deck, and very good skills at that, and that is Direful Doll Serenella. So grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Okay, typically I hate dolls because I'm like terrified of them. I'm not like whatever the doll phobia thing of it is, I don't remember what it's called, whatever the phobia of that is, I'm like one step down from that. Anyways, auto when she's rode upon by Direful Doll Griselda, look at the top 7 cards of your deck, there's 2 Direful Dolls from one of them, put them into your soul, shuffle your deck. Again, selective soul charging, you should not soul charge triggers off this, but if that's like your only choice, at least you're getting 2 20k shields out of it for later. And then auto rear guard when she attacks or boosts. If you have a grade 3 grade Vanguard Direful Doll on his card name, you may have this gives 5,000 power for the battle, and then if you do at the end of battle, bind her. All around pretty solid. She's a 13k booster or swinger when you want her to be. She does it for free as long as you're on a grade 3 or greater. And then at the end of battle, she sets herself up by binding herself. Again, place her on guard circle, send her to drop zone, use her to bounce her back to soul, or other cards to bounce her back to soul. I use Androld's skill to call her back out and basically repeat the process. All around, Serenella is a very solid grade 1. I love her skill a lot. I think she's good. She has very good selective soul charging and deck stacking to some extent. And not to mention the fact that she swings for a 13k booster or swinger and basically instigates the combo of being an infinite card. So 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the right deck, Serenella, very solid grade 1. And then we have our grade 3s, or grade 2s. So 3 copies of the one that's iffy, and that would be Direful Doll Violeta. I believe there was only one other grade 2 Direful Doll, if there was one, and it sucked. I don't think there was. I think I'm thinking of the grade 1s, but not to say that the grade 1 I chose not to run was bad. It's just bad in this deck because you can't proc off any of its ability consistently. Anyways, grade 2 instead of 5k shield, 10k base, act soul. If you have soul, it's 10 or more cards in the counter boss, one calls card to rear guard. That will never happen. I've hit 10 soul once, and considering the deck spams out the board 24/7, you will probably never need to use it, especially because it hits CV cost. But A, she's a Direful Doll. Worst comes to worst, she's target for pretty much everything in this deck. And B, if you need to refill your board because your opponent's playing a nuke deck, rear guard. That's all I can say. Violeta's not amazing, but she's not horrible either. In the situations where you have to use her, she'll be a good option, better than like some random tech card. So 3 of Violeta. That's what I'll say about her. She's good. She's better than some random tech card. Well, depending on what the random tech card is, but we'll see. Then we have our 4 copies of a really good grade 2. Direful Doll Provin. Providenza. Grade 2, intercept, 5k shield, 10k base, auto rear guard. When she attacks a grade 3 or greater unit, doesn't matter what it is as long as it's a vanguard or rear guard, as long as it's a grade 3 or greater. If you have a grade 3 or greater vanguard Direful in this card name, she'll get plus 10 as a power for the battle. Cool, free 20k swing. Then auto rear guard, the about she attacked into anything. If you have a grade 3 or greater vanguard Direful card name, energy blast 3, and bind her to choose a worker word with Direful's different card name from this unit from your soul, call to rear guard circle. The best part about this is she's the only card in the deck that costs energy, so you can go wild with this card if you want to get free draws. I mean, you won't because you need to be consistent with the energy blast 3 over here, but pretty solid that she can set herself up in the bind zone again, instigate loops with Androld, send her back to soul, etc., but get more attacks without having to CB or soul blast, which is solid, and again, free 20k swing. All around, very solid grade 2. I think she's an amazing card. Easiest 4 of in this deck, and weirdly enough, she's the highest rarity card in this deck outside of Androld, and maybe even the backup grade 3. Or not backup grade 3, the support grade 3. Now we move on to our last grade 2, 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the right deck of Direful Grisel. So grade 2, intercept, 5k shield, 10k base. I don't know what the hell she reminds me of, but she reminds me of something cool, and like the one doll that I thought was cool, and I'm really trying to remember what it was. Anyways, all when she's wrote upon by, oh, I know what she reminds me of. She reminds me of like those weird things from the Lorax, like those things that they used to cut down the truffle cheese. Why I remember this, I have no idea. Anyways, auto when she wrote upon by a grade 3 Direful doll, call itself to rear guard. All around pretty solid because, worst case scenario, for pack pulling at least, if you're trying to pull Androld and you don't, but you pull her and you pull the backup grade 3, I say backup grade 3 with very loosely terms, you can at least use that one as the right target to call her off from soul, which is solid. And then auto when she's placed on rear guard circle, if you have a vanguard Direful in its card name, by putting any card in your hand with Direful in its card name into your soul, again, the entirety of this deck that isn't the PG in these 3 cards, meaning everything but 4 cards actively is a target for this, you get to draw a card and then choose one of your vanguards, and both that unit and this unit will get plus 5,000 power for that turn. So 15k base, the vanguard's an 18k, you got a free soul, and you basically filtered out a hand card. Easiest 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the right deck I've ever seen in my life. Bushy, where were these skills during the entirety of D? I don't even want to know as long as you keep pumping them out for everything else. 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the right deck, very solid grade 3. Or grade 2. And the best part about it, it belongs to a budget deck. Then move on to our grade 3s finally. We're on 4 copies of Direful Liberata, who is actually a rare, so I was wrong about her being a high rarity card. So this is the only high rarity card in the deck outside of the main grade 3. But that means, if you pull her for budget but you don't pull him, you can at least use the SRS skill with this one. Anyways, auto when she's placed on rear guard or put on guard circle from anywhere. So this procs during not Alejandra, again, different card name, Androld skill. If you have a grade 3 or greater vanguard Direful in its card name, choose a card from your drop zone that has Direful in its card name, put it to your soul. Again, everything in this deck but 4 targets is applicable. And then auto rear guard when this unit attacks, if you have a grade 3 or greater vanguard Direful in its card name, it doesn't matter if it's attacking a rear guard or a vanguard, you may have this unit get plus 10,000 power for that battle. If you do, at the end of the battle, automatically bind this unit, and then if you want to, not mandatory, but if you want to, counter boss 1, draw a card. All around pretty solid, helps out with the bind zone, helps literally just get the free soul charge in the world, and not to mention the fact on top of that, into 20k swing into anything if you want it to be, and then you can possibly get a draw out of it as well. All around, Liberata is a very solid grade 3. It's just a good card, gets drop zone cards, gets power, gets bind, gets hand cards possibly. What's like about it? Easy 4 of. And then we have the last card in the deck, 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the right deck, of the card who when I try to squeeze on thumbnails, it looks horrible because I try to get the staff in there and the staff shows part of the curtain, so it doesn't look that great because half the curtain's cut off. But then when we have the full art, I love looking at it because he's literally entering a stage from the back of the theater, and that is, I forgot to change his name, but I now realize that, but his full name, and we're just gonna type this out here and pretend like this is not agreed on, Direful Doll Master Androld. He has a little bit more to his name than active. I forgot the rest of his name. But pretty much Androld. I forgot to type the D. Okay, anyways. Grade 3, Twin Giant, Persona at 13k base. As I quickly look up what his actual full name is. Act Vanguard Circle. Once per turn, by counterblasting 1, you can choose the same number of worker roid with Direful dolls in their card names from your soul as your opponent's grade. Call him to rear guard circle. If you call 3 or more, he gets a drive for the turn. And this is why I said earlier with Tanya being a worker roid of why that was important. Because Androld himself, and I learned this after I made the misplay of it, and I'm sorry for that, is that he's not a worker roid. So you can't call him so. Also, his full name is Direful Doll. Oh, Direful Doll Master. That's what it was. I think I said it right, and I said it, just spelt it wrong. But yeah, Direful Doll Master. There we go. Anyways, so the fact he can't call himself kind of sucks, but the fact that he can call pretty much everything else in the deck and possibly get a drive out of it is amazing. So you pick cards equal to the opponent's grade, so if they're at grade 2, you can call any 2 cards from your soul. If they're at grade 3, call any 3 cards, and you get the triple drive. And then auto Vanguard, when he's attacked by anything, Vanguard, rear guard, doesn't matter. choose up to one Workeroid with Direful on this card name from your bind zone, call it to guard circle, and it gets 5,000 shield for that battle. I believe that ability is once per battle because it activates when it's attacked, but being able to call any Workeroid, give it a free 5k shield. Again, it doesn't count itself, but, you know, Liberata, who can get you more soul, Grisel, who's automatically 10k shield. All these are 10k shields, and then this one turns, you know, into a 15k. These two triggers turn into 20ks if you find a way to get them to bind zone. All around is pretty solid. And it's not a once per turn either, so you can just keep using it the more your opponent attacks you, so you have more defensive options. All around, Androld's a very solid grade 3. He gets rear guards on board, he gets triple drive, he gets guard power. What's something about him? Easy 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the right deck. And that's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. Honestly, I used to be annoyed with Bushy during D because they did not give a lot of budget decks, and if they did any, then it wasn't really obvious. But they gave us things I wanted. They gave us ride deck cards with good rear guard skills. They gave us a budget deck that was actually consistent, that wasn't a promo, no offense to the promo decks. And this budget deck has done very well. They have a consistent way of getting stuff to soul, to rear guard, to bind zone, to guard circle, to drop zone, and then back to soul. Like, and the only way I would say that they could support this deck further is to give us cards that can bind other cards, because right now there is no real way to get the triggers into bind zone unless you play some weird Omnigodizio mix. But, you know, for now, or you play that, actually it has to be an Omnigodizio mix, but for now it's really good, and that's just how they could support it better. But either way though, that's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. All around is very fun to play. I play more aggro than I play defensively, which I probably shouldn't do, but I don't care. So I'm Simone here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join us, follow Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to send up your vanguards.